and then you can take over.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Sweet. I'm happy to talk about this one a little bit because I have case studies for days on this thing. But this is the the anchored VWAP, and that's something that we've had on for a while, but we haven't really done a ton with it. We hadn't done a ton with it when we, I think, introduced it and did a webinar with you guys, but this is something we've been learning a lot about through Brian Shannon, who was the creator of it. He's the founder of Alpha Trends, and Anchored VWAP is on a couple different platforms, but TrendSpider definitely has the easiest implementation, just with the right click and then just create an alert, or sorry, create a VWAP. So one thing that's really interesting is anchoring this from very important, what I would call kind of like status quo changes in the market. So in this case, I anchored it from December 24th because that was kind of our capitulation day in 2018 before we really reversed hard. And you can see, how well the price has respected this quite a few times. We initially tested it here on a pullback. We tested it here on a pullback. And then we really almost bounced perfectly here on the final capitulation day on Friday. But we did move down a little bit, which is something that kind of brings into the next point, which is the anchored volume profile as well in conjunction with this. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of volume profile, but a lot of you who have used volume profile will probably see that, if you're in another platform, anytime you scroll the chart, the volume's going to change because the volume by price is a function of whatever, your history goes back to, rather than our volume by price that you can easily just move and keep the chart static. So what I did here was I anchored the VWAP and the volume by price here, and you'll notice that this huge area of volume acted as kind of like a sponge to absorb all of that selling, because there were so many people holding from here, from this kind of consolidation zone. When somebody's got profits and they're in the profit a lot, they tend to sell. And so, you can see from this point, this whole demand zone here, I'll highlight it. There were a lot of people holding at, 11% profit in a little less than 4 months on the SPY, which is a lot of money if you've got a couple $1 billion on SPY, which are, some of these institutions do. So it's very easy for the price to drop very quickly if everybody runs for the exit at the same time. But then what you see is you'll kind of find an area to bounce at where you kind of have all these people back to break even. And so the supply dries up because people stop taking profits because nobody's in profits anymore. So this is something that we've been using a lot, especially in the last week, to kind of find these levels of support below. And something that's really unique on the platform, when you can go in and just create an alert anywhere on the line rather than just creating it, on an exact precise area. So we've gone over the alert system before, but this is something that is applicable to the alert system and the sensitivity as well. Any questions on that?
No. Awesome indicator.
Yeah, it's something that I think we launched it about 2 months ago, maybe a little more. But this is just one example here. Gilead is another cool example where you can see, if we anchor the volume by price from this reversal point here, when we finally pulled back from this huge move up, notice right where we fell to, right to this area where most of the volume was holding from this particular point in time. So I anchor it from these reversal points because that's kind of when you have a capitulation event. Anyone who is going to sell within this downtrend sold on this day. And then from there, buyers took back over. And so that's why I like to anchor the VWAP and the volume profile from this particular point. And that's kind of, across the board. It's something that is really, really powerful, especially on even resistance areas above. This is FNKO. This is a cool case study that Dan had traded. And essentially, if we anchor the VWAP from this point, you can tell how perfectly the price respected this area above. And so I think Dan entered the trade somewhere around here, and then exited it right at this point. And notice it didn't get exactly to that area. So that's where your sensitivity comes in, where you can really kind of add that layer of margin of error around that area that you're watching. So it's not only for support, it's not only for resistance, it's really for both, and it's incredibly powerful to kind of to trade off of. So that is just something that I wanted to mention because we haven't really had a couple of cool case studies on that before, and mostly because we hadn't done enough research. And I think there's a question when the chart decided it wasn't even going to try to come that VWAP. Yeah. So that's right. It didn't even have any business doing that. And same thing, on the downside too with SPY. I mean, it was very violent, the buying that came in once we kind of anchored the volume from this point. And notice, let's say that I anchor the volume from, this point, which I would say is the second to most important area on the chart. You can see perfectly, the wick here almost wicked perfectly down to where we really started to drop off on the volume part of things. So, this is something you don't necessarily always have to anchor the VWAP and the volume by price at the same points. Sometimes I'll anchor the VWAP from a longer term kind of capitulation point, and then I'll anchor the volume by price from a closer capitulation point. You can see here how well that works together. And another thing too, on the upside, if let's say that we anchor the volume profile from this move here, you'll notice that there was quite a bit of volume holding here. And that's why we likely found resistance, because that was a lot of supply there. And notice these two candles, notice how volatile they are. A reason for that is because there was no volume really holding there. So if we go to a 65-minute candle, this will help out a little bit. You'll see, a lot of that volume was holding at this area, and that's exactly where we found resistance. So this is really just kind of localizing supply and demand zones. This is a resistance zone above. Anytime you've got volume above the current price, that's going to act as resistance. Anytime that you've got volume below, it's going to act as support. Notice how the price is trying to catch a bid here because of how much demand there was here and how many people are now holding at break even. If this breaks down, you really don't have a lot of people holding until this 293 area. And so we like to call these like volume gaps in price, where you don't have a lot of friction below for the price to kind of stop and catch a bid. It will generally move very quickly through these volume gaps. So that's something that I use literally every day. This is an example like here, the daily. Notice when I anchored the volume profile from it here, we don't get that clear of a picture. It's kind of clunky. So sometimes if you're anchoring from a point that doesn't have a ton of data points on a longer term time frame, just go to like a 65-minute candle or a shorter term time frame where you can get a little more kind of smoothness within the volume. You can see the volume's a lot easier to read in the shorter time frame. And we still anchored it from this same point, which was just the highest point on February 19th that we hit before reversing. So here, this may be an interesting case study as we're on the podcast, because notice how price is literally kind of dropping very quickly, not catching a bid much at all. So that's something that I would highly recommend checking out. It's completely changed not only my trading style, Dan's as well, and pretty much everyone at our team. It just really helps you visualize these areas that, truly are moving price. Price is generally dictated by trend lines, moving averages, but there's a lot of the reason behind that is due to the supply and demand around those areas, which you can see with this anchored volume by price. So that is my presentation on the volume by price and VWAP. I do want to go to the market scanner, which is something that we have not gone over at all yet. So let me just go to a chart that doesn't have any annotations on it so we can have a clear chart to play around with. All right, so this is just a chart of Home Depot, but let's say that we want to scan for some particular condition. You can do that a couple different ways. Let's say that it's a pretty well-known condition like a MACD cross or a pretty generic moving average cross. you're going to find those in these predefined templates that we've already created. Dan has also done a couple spider scans. If you just type in spider here, you'll see all of these different areas, or not areas, different templates that you can choose from within this particular left side of the screen. And then as you go towards the middle of the screen, this is where you can go in and create whatever condition you would like. So let's say you don't want to use a predefined template, you want to make your own condition. You can go in here and create the name for that. Let's do possible hammers. I don't know if we're going to get many today, especially as the market's still forming. And the reason I say still forming is because we can do a couple things here. We can either scan for hammers that have already happened yesterday, or we can scan for daily hammers that are currently forming now during the current price action. So they're not formed yet, but at this particular time, they are showing as a hammer. So if I go to current candle, I'm currently now scanning the Russell 2000 for simply the daily candlestick pattern, and I just do a hammer here. We have either a regular hammer, which is a set of definitions that we have created on the back end, or you can go by the pattern site definition of a hammer, which is Thomas Bulkowski's definition. So if we go here and scan, any current candle that is forming as a hammer is going to pop up. Notice that we don't have many here. In this case, we do have a hammer kind of forming here. Oh, we have a few others forming as well. You know, it's something that, as I mentioned, as we're scanning, these prices are changing. So these can easily go from a hammer to not a hammer because the candle's still in formation. Let's say that you wanted to scan for something maybe a little more complex, where you look for, you know, the daily MACD fast crosses down through the slow, same thing, the daily slow, and then you also want maybe a weekly, you know, bullish engulfing candle, or a bearish engulfing candle. You can really do anything you want with this with different time frames. So it's not just you can use the daily MACD different indicators. You can actually use the weekly completely different condition as well. So this is something that's very powerful and you know, really eliminates some of that grunt work that you have to do going through a watch list. And so, you know, what I mean by that is, you may have your own watch list of stocks. I'm kind of one of those people that just trades the same stock over and over. And so in that case, you could just go to a predefined list that you've already made. This is the everyday list. It's a list of stocks that I look at every day. It's probably 30 or 35 stocks. And so then I can actually just scan through this particular list without having to find a bunch of random stocks that I may not be too familiar with. So in this case, we've got the daily MACD cross here. To the downside, this is the only stock in my current list of everyday watch list that has a MACD cross here. So I know that it's not a very common thing going on in the market right now. So, you know, this is something that, let's say that we scan the Russell 2000 again and we have a bigger watch list. You can go in and actually save this watch list or this scan as a watch list, and it would come up as possible hammers here. So if I go and stop this and I want to save this, I would actually be able to save this to possible hammers. And then when I go up to the watch list section, which is at the top right here, you'll actually be able to you know, see this watch list and track it this way. So in this case, we just made the watch list. It was possible hammers. So I just click possible hammers here, and then all of those will pop up. And anytime that I want to refresh this scan, I just click this circle here and it will start to refresh. It looks like we have a question. Not sure if Jake will cover. So I'm not, can you show us an example on futures? Let's see, I don't even trade futures. What would be, I'm not even sure if that would work on futures. ES1. Where's Astra? I'm not sure if we, yep. So this would work on futures as well here. The thing about futures is the futures data is end of day. So this is the volume profile for all data up to yesterday. But you can still see here from this particular point in time when we capitulated on October 2nd before starting the trend up, most of the volume is holding above, which will generally act sometimes as a magnet above. But that's why you also need to kind of, go out further and sometimes start to anchor from where you really started the trend. And you'll see here on the futures that, there's still not a ton of volume until around the 2780 area. So you can see we're kind of in this volume gap here, as I mentioned before. Will you be aiming to have real-time data and tick charts? That is something 100% that we will be adding at some point. That is likely going to happen when we have brokerage integration, so you're able to actually go in and connect your brokerage data in there and essentially trade through TrendSpider with the API connection. Hopefully, I think Dan just answered that as well. So that's something that's really interesting. So now that we've got our scan here, we can easily just rescan. As we mentioned, we're looking for current candles that formed a MACD cross. I put it as hammers because that was the original name. But any stock that is now forming a cross down, we could go and scan again, and that may change because 5 minutes or a couple minutes have passed where some of these may not be showing a MACD cross anymore. So this is not just for day traders. This is actually something I would probably use more on the swing trading side, especially for, like, let's say a weekly candle. So what I like to do is I go to the weekly chart, and what I'll do is towards the end of the week, I'll go in and scan for generally we'll scan the Russell 2000 for a current candle forming as a weekly hammer. So that means that the weekly candle is not closed yet, but I know that I want to look for potential hammers that are forming on the weekly. Right now, it's Tuesday. So this doesn't really mean too much to me because so much can happen by Thursday afternoon. I'm generally wanting to scan for these hammers on the weekly candle, within the last, let's say, last trading day or even the last 15 minutes before Thursday's close. And so you can see here, this is AMK, perfect hammer forming here. Another thing that you can see here is since the IPO, you can see how much of that volume is holding in this area. So it kind of creates a lack of supply because now the price is trading lower than what most of the shares are holding at. So as people stop selling at a loss, that supply dries up, and you'll see the price will generally gravitate around this area and possibly start to move up from there. I'm open to answering any questions that you guys have. I've kind of been talking straight for a little bit, and just want to see if anyone has any questions that I can kind of tailor to and maybe go a different direction with this. So that is our, overall goal eventually would be to connect to any brokerage platform where you just connect the API and you're able to, get your interactive brokerage data fed into TrendSpider, and then you'll actually be able to make trades through TrendSpider. To answer your question, only bears in Canada. Any other questions?
I'm here, Jake. I just stepped away for a second. Really good stuff, guys. If you guys have any questions, now's the time to ask. I mean, I could throw one out. I was thinking about the market scanner. Can you show how to use the market scanner with multi-time frame analysis? So let's say you had a bullish daily candlestick, and then sometime another set of criteria that looks at a second time frame that finds maybe a like a 5-minute breakout pattern or moving average crossover, just something with a daily criteria and then a intraday criteria, because I think a lot of our traders who day trade in here are looking for reversals and momentum breakouts, and finding this stuff using TrendSpider, using the multi-time frame side could be really, really useful.
Yep. So I just made a daily bullish engulfing scan with a 65-minute MACD cross to the upside. Just based on the current market conditions, I can't really see that, finding anything, which it didn't.
Yeah.
So let's do, maybe a 65-minute.
Could be bearish too. I mean, for shorting too, for sure.
MACD fast cross down through the MACD slow. And then we would just change it to, a bearish engulfing. That would confirm this a little more. So we just go engulfing bearish, and then we could easily switch that scan to a bearish scan. Probably we'll find more of, potential stocks here than the bullish, but still we're kind of looking for some very specific kind of credentials, which especially since I didn't change this to MACD fast crossed down, put up. So 65-minute MACD fast crossed down through the slow. That should yield a few more results, especially when the market is tanking like it is. And then you've got quite a few results popping up here. So you've got your current candle is engulfing bearish, and then your MACD has recently crossed down. So in this case, we have, let's see, this is the weekly, that's why. Yep, so here's your daily bearish engulfing, and then your 65-minute MACD fast crosses the slow is also there. So if we went here, split the screen, went to 65-minute, we would see that just crossed on the downside. So it's really, see how much time that took me to just do one chart. That's what the scanner kind of does, is gives you the ability to search for all of these things across a huge list without having to go through each one of these different time frames. It's quickly there. MACD cross on the 65-minute, check. Bearish engulfing, check. And look at how many we have here. We have a ton.
Awesome.
So
yep.
It's very easy to use in the sense that, using multiple time frames is pretty easy to use and just self-explanatory as far as, once you get it in, you just need to know your logic. That's one thing about these conditions is, you need to be familiar with what conditions that you want to create. Sometimes we have some issues with, people may not know exactly what they want to create. If you're one of them, I'm not great at creating these logical conditions either, because I'm not really a coder, and generally people in the software world can do this a little quicker. Please reach out and we'll help you with any scan that you want to do, any alert that you want to create. So we're very open to supporting you on creating whatever scan you're looking for. Please feel free to reach out and ask us any questions if you are a current customer. If you're not and you want to become a customer, you can always reach out to us, hello@trendspider.com. Once you sign up, it's a free trial, so you are able to check things out before you're obligated to pay anything or anything like that. We want to make sure it adds value before we're just handing it off and asking for the first payment. So it's something that we give users time to check out, and we are supportive the whole way through if you have any questions about a specific feature or anything like that. All right,
Very
we have
cool.
a couple more questions.
Oh, you see the questions?
Timing sales in level 3 and 4. No, that's because we're just not plugged into the brokerage integration side. Our commercial data feeds just don't have that information. Biggest misconception people have when they first start to use the system is that it's probably too complicated to even try. A lot of people initially use it and they're like, man, this is just too much. We know that there's a lot of different features on the platform, and that's why we've got these Sunday webinars. We have sales webinars that we do every week, which is more of a group, but we also have one-on-one demos that you can also sign up for, and we can answer any questions you have at all. But I would say, the easiest way to learn TrendSpider is kind of going through it, trying to do it yourself, and then writing questions down, and then doing a one-on-one demo. So, the questions that you do have are immediately addressed rather than going over data or information that, may not be relevant to you. So that's something we've seen a lot of success in. Anyone who kind of tries the product out, writes their questions down, and then we can really narrow down on their needs when we actually do the one-on-one demo. So, that would probably be the biggest misconception, that just it's hard to use at first, but I don't think that's really something that's too true, especially once you get a one-on-one training or you watch a couple of our Sunday webinars. We're using the platform daily, and we're showing off how we're using the platform on our Sunday webinars. So it's real life case studies, so you can really learn things that we're actually using this for in real life and real trades and that type of thing. As much as we want to sell a product and sell a software, there's no way to do that without providing the educational piece to it to show why it adds value to the user. So that's something that is also important, where some people look and initially see that we're not necessarily a software, we're just someone who posts charts, and a lot of our charts on social media are aimed at showing those case studies right when they happen and giving you the ability to kind of see how this is applicable to a specific type of trade or strategy or anything like that. What is the pricing? So pricing, there are a ton of different prices based on whatever plan you're on. We have 3 different plans. I'll go to our pricing page now and show you the different plans we have. We have Premium, Elite, and Master. Obviously, if you do upfront, it's going to be cheaper for a yearly plan than a monthly plan. And so as you switch over from monthly to yearly, you'll see that discount added to these different plans. You can see all the different types of data that you receive, the different features and all that as you scroll down. And if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. We'll answer any questions you have about the pricing and the features that come with it.
Good stuff. All right, guys, any more questions? I think you wowed them again. Thank you, Jake and Dan, for coming in.
You're very welcome.
Always
Thank
a
you for having
pleasure.
me. Hopefully the markets, can get a little. Well, I guess the volatility is great. It's if you can swing long or short easily, this is prime time. But for those that like just long trades, that's why the scanner's there, so you can kind of wait and see when those long trades form. And you can even just create an alert and say, alert me when the MACD fast is crossing up through the slow. So, this type of logic can be applied to just a simple alert. So rather than scanning the market, you just say, I want to know when XERS has a MACD cross, and it will let you know there. So you don't have to go and manually scan it. I think there was a question about futures being added this year. So we do have futures at just end of day. But honestly, I don't have any updates unless Dan does on when that will be coming. I'm assuming with brokerage integration. TTM squeeze, yes, we do. We do have the TTM squeeze. It's just under indicators here. All of the indicators that we have to offer are within this Manage Indicators tab. So if you want to just type in, TTM squeeze, you click it, and it will pop up on the chart once you've added it. So definitely a ton of different indicators you can check out. We continue to add them weekly, or not weekly, probably monthly. I think we just added 13 new indicators, or we will be adding those at some point this week. So, what you see here is still a product in the works. Every day we're working on innovating and creating something new to really test out and see if it's something that is a value add to our customers. And, some of these things that I went over today, especially the anchored volume by price, has been something that we've really gotten a lot of good feedback on, not only from our customers, but some of our partners who, are longer term traders. They really like the ability to localize these areas without having to do anything to your screen. So, if anyone does not have any more questions, are you working indicators with simpler options? Right now we're not. I'm not sure what the indicators are with simpler options, but if they're a function of any type of options pricing, we won't have that anytime soon. I'm hoping, maybe when we get brokerage integration, we'll be able to do a little more with options pricing. But right now we don't have any of that data.
Tough. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. You got to get over and try out for yourself, guys. You have to see, like they said, they do a trial. It